I'm not a politician.
Somebody clap.
But I do understand the importance of politics. And given that this is an election year here in Maryland for us to vote for our next governor, I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to bring attention to Baltimore City. And first up is our elected delegate, Mr. Dan Cox. And he's going to, yes. If you're not first, you're last, right? So Mr. Cox, he'll be able to speak on his platform, Ms. Beth, and tell you a little bit about himself, and then however he wants to run it, pretty much we have no, agenda. We just pretty much want to hear from him, his vision for the, Maryland and the city of Baltimore. So give it up again for Mr. Dan Cox.
Real honor to be here. Thanks for coming today. And I think I'll start just a little bit about myself so you know a little bit more about me, and then talk about the issues of why we're running, and then hopefully answer some questions. And then I'd like to introduce some other candidates and let them say a few words. And I was going to sit down, but I guess I'll stand just for the projection. So, I appreciate you all coming. It's a real honor to be here. I am most encouraged when I see things like the scripture on the back wall from King David that talks about where our hope lies. Our hope is in the rock, our Savior, and my Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. And I tell you, from time and eternity, we have a need for government that actually matters in all of our liberties and protections that are God-given. Where do we get our liberties from? Where do we get anything from? It's from our Creator, right? We're made in His image. We have individual rights. We are not a collective. We are individuals that have the respect demanded of God Himself and of each other. And so that's what we need to bring into politics. And it's, my experience is more of a lower middle class background. So when I had the privilege of working for 3.5 years in a law firm in East Baltimore, right near the Eastern District, my law partner was Michael Marr. I don't know if you ever heard of Michael Marr, but he was a former prosecutor who became a defense lawyer and worked also as a pastor in the city with his wife. And they had a real heart for the city. And he knew I was from the country. I was from Frederick, and he brought me in, and I was working down here, and he's like, I hope you're not going to be shocked. It's poor and sometimes dangerous, but you just got to roll with it. And I said, look, I grew up on a farm with bulls chasing me and with duct tape on my truck. The first thing that happened to me was I rolled up to a stoplight, and this car rolled up next to me, and they had their bumper duct taped. I said, this is my people. But in all honesty, I was shocked, honestly, with the sadness that goes on. One of my clients' children, a young lady, a beautiful young lady, was stabbed 17 times and died right outside of the courthouse, the Eastern District Courthouse, in broad daylight. And I had trouble with that because I couldn't understand why there was this lack of respect for life and individuals. And it was a domestic, incident. And so it kind of woke me up pretty quickly, and I worked that case. And my heart, my passion were developed. But looking backwards, I was actually raised in a family where my maternal grandparents grew up in the city. They were from the city. My grandmother used to walk to play the organ at Govin's Presbyterian. So she was just outside of Govinstown, above Roland Park area somewhere. I'm not quite sure. I think it was Gittins Avenue area, somewhere up in there. And my grandfather was from Brooklyn Park. So I kind of grew up with this knowledge of the city. I was They would come down here a lot. I actually went to summer camps, at an inner city summer camp for several summers when I was a kid, and I had interactions with the city. So my heart has always been aware of the city, and certainly not as intricately involved as I am wanting to be more on the campaign trail. And so when I look at that experience and that interaction, I remember just the feeling, especially in the 80s when the Inner Harbor was developed, and I had this sense of pride for my city, And you could come down here and you could sense that Baltimore was on the move, and it really was, a city that was rejuvenating and, just had hope and opportunity, and then things seem to have taken a real drastic turn, as you know. I don't have to tell you, it's literally one of the worst for violent crimes right now. It's out of control. And so the question is, who's to blame? Is it the politicians? Maybe, in large part. But I think there's also a need for what I'm running on, and I'm going to go a little bit off script, but my platform, I have a 5-point Cox for Freedom platform, coxforfreedom.com. I think you could boil it down to faith, family, and freedom.
Yes.
Because without faith and without the family, you're not going to have freedom.
Right.
And unfortunately, the policies of the politicians have militated against faith and family for the last 100 years or less, 50 years at least. Whether it's Baltimore City or whether it's anywhere in the state, the family has been disregarded in large part. Our faith has been devalued. And the final straw for me became really when they, for the first time in 400 years of Maryland history, shut down the churches.
Oh, wow.
And you could be arrested to go to your place of worship. In fact, I had a pastor client that he was threatened by the state police if he opened his food bank.
Oh, wow.
But yet you could go down to Walmart and you could, sing a ditty in the aisle, or the liquor store.
Oh, liquor store.
Yeah.
And so these issues of freedom became front and center as its state delegate. I began to work hard. And I was not opposed to working with the governor. At the first 14 days, we saw, no understand. I had no understanding what was going on other than what I was being fed from the different leaders. But it became, I was from the very beginning skeptical and became very concerned immediately when they didn't keep their word about the 14 days to
Right.
occur. And all of a sudden it became a mask mandate and all these mandates. And then I got calls from pastors, and the next thing you know, you have a need to question authority and saying, are you actually in authority? Because if you're out from under the Constitution that gives you your office as a governor or as a politician, you're not following your own authority.
Right.
And so as a state delegate, I had to ask the question, what is my role then? And I felt like, well, if we're going to rejuvenate our state, if we're going to make sure we're on the right path, and if I'm going to fulfill my constitutional duties, I need to examine this and focus on these issues and fight for our freedoms, speak up, be willing to be ostracized, be willing to have my bills killed, as they have been, and yet, try to keep that focus on you, on we, the people.
Right.
To empower us is the key. That ties in, so if you look at those issues, it ties directly into the needs of Baltimore City, I think.
Right.
Because my interest as your next governor would be to bring you to the table and to say, I want to empower you. What can we do to make you in your local communities have the most freedom to do what needs to be done to expand opportunities that are necessary, rather than this top-down governmental model that says that they know best and they're going to roll in and they're going to try to tell you what to do, and instead, set aside really the bedrock of your community and the families that are necessary to build it back up again. Policies need to address this. We need to make sure that you have the right to business. I had individuals that had their businesses shut down. My opponent developed a non-essential list. Now, the latest she was blaming Vice President Pence for this. It's the latest thing I heard on the campaign trail. Well, I'm sorry. The recommendations of the Vice Presidency are not binding upon the governor, and and the Commerce Secretary, and, you know, they made choices. You know, and I respect them as individuals, and I'm not bashing them like I'm getting bashed, that's fine. In fact, I had a call with this is off topic, just for a second. When I filed, Kelly called me. I'm actually friends with Kelly because I voted for her twice as my delegate, right?
Okay.
We're both from Frederick. She called me up and she said, I want to, you know, ensure you're going to keep this race clean. And I said, Kelly, that's who I am.
Right.
That's who I am, you know me. I don't try to go after you personally. I don't believe in that. I don't like it.
Right.
That's not, to me, I want to focus on the issues. That's my pledge. And I said, I hope you pledge the same. And she said, yes. I said, you know what, Kelly, you really need to ask your boss whether he'll pledge the same. She got very quiet. She got very quiet. She didn't answer that one.
Now, who's her boss for us, those that don't know?
Hogan.
Hogan. Right.
Yeah.
Governor Hogan, and his operatives, you know, they run a different kind of campaign sometimes. But unfortunately, Kelly has now used her campaign to go, you know,
Right.
go ad hominem on us. But that's fine, because that shows you something. The politicians are nervous about the fact that the people are taking back their own freedom.
Right.
It's not about any individuals, it's about you. It's about the fact that you have a right to your own constitution. And that's why I'm running. I'm wanting to empower you under the Constitution to make sure you have everything you need. And instead of, for instance, sending, as Bernie and I were talking outside, sending all this money overseas.
Right.
Okay? Do you know, I had the privilege of going on a missions trip to Colombia, Cali, Colombia with my daughter. It was amazing, okay? We were in some pretty rough areas. The FARC had been pushed out. The communist guerrillas were kind of in the mountains, so we were in hopefully a safer zone. It actually, while I was there, you know, my wife was very nervous, but I looked it up, and actually the crime rate was a little bit less than Baltimore. I thought, this is so sad. And here we are sending $6 billion a year to them, whereas it's your tax money.
Right.
This should be coming back. And when you look at the history of Baltimore's property taxes, it's set up for failure. You guys have to pay twice the rate of the rest of the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
And get half the services.
Because of their form.
And that's going to end. I'm going to work hard, constitutionally, to make that change and make you equal
Can you
to
start
property
now?
taxes.
You in office, and you start now.
So I'm not, as you know, I'm not a fan of executive orders.
That's
But I
all.
do believe that the power of the governor's office has one of the most powerful budgets in the state, in the nation. And the exertion of execution of the laws for equality for all is there, and it should be done. And these things can be changed rather quickly if people realize this is a motivation of the governor,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
it can happen. And that's just part of it, because once you get the property taxes and the properties back under control, you can have opportunities then. Investors will want to buy in. They'll want to have businesses in in the community. And that goes in, hand in hand with empowering you with local policing. I know that's a difficult topic, but every time I am in my committee, Judiciary Committee, I'm always surprised that people actually from Baltimore City that testify say they don't want their communities defunded
Right.
with the police. They want proper training, proper empowerment, proper equipment, but they do not want those police pulled out, because you all are the ones that are needing to call somebody.
Right.
And I don't know how it is in every part of Baltimore City, but when I was working in East Baltimore, my clients would have a bad car accident, and they would call me saying, and I said, I need a police report. And they said, I called the police. They never showed up.
Oh, wow.
Well, then I can't, how can I properly handle and protect them in the law if we don't even have, police showing up to help?
Right.
So that is something that I think needs to change, and the way you do that is you stop this defund the police movement that takes away your power, your local community powers. Instead, I think we need to look at the budget and trim it down and say, look, why are we putting in millions of dollars to catch and release illegal aliens from the southern border here? Release them into the state. without saying that they need to go through the proper channels like everybody else.
Right.
And use that money instead for you who are here, it's
Thank
your
you.
tax money, right?
Thank you.
Make sure that
Makes
it's trimmed back and line item this kind of overspending out. That also will help us secure our state with a more stable financial basis. And one of the things that I think when you look at the platform that we're talking about, there's no, there's no like, this is the total answer for all the problems. But I can tell you on the faith, family, and freedom issue, education and school choice is a key element for making sure your children have the future that you need. I mean, I was, blessed and privileged. My father's a pastor. I had the opportunity to have education like a lot of my friends didn't necessarily have, because my father founded a school, and he founded a statewide program, and he empowered parents to take their education back. And not everybody can do that, but one of the things we can do is make sure that you can get your tax money and have that money follow the child.
Absolutely.
And I'm not a big, I don't want government entanglement. Every time you see that happen, they start telling you can't teach them about faith, you can't teach them about certain values, instead you have to use a government curriculum. No, I don't want any of that. We need to empower you to have the options, whether it's parochial, private, or homeschooling, to say, you are the masters of your children. You're going to have your own choices to interact with the professionals that you choose to make your curriculum choices for your children. And that is going to be a key future aspect, for rejuvenating the city, I think. It's the way it works, okay? If you don't have access to education, how are you going to have generational success? The only reason why I had the privilege of going to law school was because I had access to a great elementary school and then a great high school education. And then I had access to a great, I was admitted to Mount St. Mary's University. That changed my life. Those aspects of opportunity changed my life. Now, did I have to work my butt off? Yeah, I worked 3 jobs in college because I didn't get the track scholarship I wanted. I got on the team, but I wasn't as good as some of the other boys. So I had to bust my butt, and I worked as a waiter, I worked as a lifeguard, and then I had to, so my dad gave me free room and board so long as I managed the farm, because we had a little farm. We raised beef. So I did that, sometimes he's pinched hit for me, but that taught me a lot. It taught me that nothing's free. You work for it. You want it? You really want something? You can have it if you set your mind to earn it and work for it.
Yes.
That's this country.
Yes.
And yes, there's hard knocks. I've had so many hard knocks. I remember I had experiences in college where, just an example, by the time I got to law school, we had an opportunity to go. I had to sell, so I had built a house. I had $2,000 in my bank account I had saved up. And I was able to buy a piece of land and then use that equity. The bank allowed me to use that equity to do what's called a construction to perm loan. And this changed my life. It opened the doors up. But I had to do a lot of sweat equity on that. So I built the house with my father's construction company. And I'll never forget having to sell that house that I worked so hard to build. I mean, it took me 6 years, to finish it. It took me 2 years to get it under, get the permits and everything. But then you're always doing trim work in some room somewhere that you never got to. Finally got it all done, and then, we had the opportunity to go to law school, but I didn't have the money. And I saw that this was the opportunity, sell that house. And that changed my life, because it gave me the opportunity to go to law school. But I'll never forget, in law school we had 3 kids, my wife and I. And she and I had an agreement. I wasn't going to be, sacrificing my family for my legal degree. So every night, 6 o'clock, I checked out of the law school. And I had that pit in my stomach, because now I love my family, but as I left the library, I saw all those young people working till midnight, and I knew one thing: they're going to beat my butt at the competitions, because it's everything's a competition. because they had more time to learn more things than I was
Right.
able. But you know what it taught me though? It taught me that hard work is precious. Hard work is the mechanism, and I wasn't ultimately damaged by that at all.
Right.
Whenever you have a hurdle, you figure a way through ingenuity to work hard at it. But what needs to stop is when government interferes with that opportunity and starts disincentivizing your own ingenuity, your own options, and then making it so hard that you can't even, because of the tax structure or whatever it may be, it's too difficult to get ahead. And you turn around and people that have never invested blood, sweat, and tears, in this state or this nation, end up getting free handouts that is coming from your paycheck.
Right.
And that's where we gotta redirect this ship on the right path and say, no, it's the people's money, it's the people's opportunity, and we need to make sure that happens. So school choice is a path for that, because it opens the doors up for people to start realizing that they have the power to take back. They have the power to make sure that those taxes are lowered, that the budget structure favors private industry, your opportunity. And, I wouldn't be able to have run to be a state delegate if I had not had my own business. How did I have my own business? Well, I worked for some construction litigation firms, worked very hard, and it was through that process that I was able to take a risk. And those risk-taking opportunities freed me from the grind, so to speak, to be able to have the ingenuity to have my own business. I firmly believe in empowering you to have your own businesses.
Absolutely.
If you're running your own life, you're not having to punch the clock all the time. You've got more options. You have more time sometimes. Now, actually, it's not always true.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Small business you sometimes work, for
20
me,
hours.
you work twice sometimes and you work the weekends, but you're
it's
still your
worth
own
it.
boss.
It's worth it.
Let me ask you this question.
So, yes.
So throughout, you're saying that, you came across a couple challenges, throughout your life. What gave you that motivation to keep going? What, propels you like, all right, let me get over this hump, was it just something within you? Was it family? Was it faith? All the above? What can we,
Faith?
how can we,
Sure.
get a kind of insight on, so somebody else that's going through like, hey, like we're struggling right now trying to fight, somebody, you don't fight the city, you don't fight the utility company, so we're going through those issues right now here in Baltimore City.
Yeah.
So how do we,
Well, you have to know your battles and which hills you want to really focus on. But at the same time, I've always been inspired by people of history that have never given up. We've got great history in Maryland where you have Frederick Douglass, you have, I'm sorry?
Darwin Marshall.
Yes, and the lady from the Eastern Shore.
Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman.
There you go.
It's just something up
Black
there.
Moses. Black Moses.
Do you know that Harriet Tubman?
That's my girl there, Black Moses.
Come on
Do you know that Harriet Tubman carried a gun and she was a Republican?
Yes, he was.
Yes,
The
Republican.
big R.
Do you know that
He was Frederick Douglass.
she had a brain injury
Yeah.
Like
from
myself.
abuse against her that she overcame, and she didn't turn it into bitterness. She turned it into betterness. She turned it into a vision beyond herself of
Yeah.
love. We're here. At the end of the day, it's all about 1 Corinthians 13. The greatest of these things is love. Why do I wake up every morning and want to do this? Because of my kids.
Yes.
It really is. I mean, I'm not making that up. I mean, at the end, because I could do other
Yes.
things. But because we have, look, our state has a heritage of freedom.
Yes.
We have a heritage of being a place that's called, it was called the Middle Temperament. It was called the South of Mason-Dixon line, where you had opportunities for everybody. You had growing freedom. You had issues, you had corrective issues over the years. And, Baltimore City used to be
Yes.
the I would say the Queen City.
Yes.
In fact, it used to be called the Queen on the Potomac, I was told, right? Or in the Potomac Basin, right?
Charm City.
Charm City.
Still called Charm.
Still called Charm City.
Yeah.
So, when you look at our heritage, you look at those freedom people, when you see Harriet Tubman that never gave up, and I remember hearing a story about her when I was in high school. My mom made sure we heard these stories. They were dramas, that usually they were done in dramas on the radio. Is because we weren't, into a lot of TV. My mom was like, rein in the TV a lot. So, well, we had a lot of drama radio stuff we got to hear, and she inspired me. And then, excuse me, I did one of my papers on World War II, and so I studied World War II a lot, and I studied Winston Churchill. And one of the things that inspired me about Winston Churchill, that he came to America and he gave a speech in St. Louis, I believe it was, and he said, they asked him the same question, how did you not give up, or how did you continue on in the context of, when you had the Nazi regime at your doorstep, you had people in your own party ready to, run you out of town, and you persevered, and by persevering, you saved you saved civilization in some respect. How did you do that?
Oh,
Yeah.
you don't know.
And he had a simple answer. Never give up. And then he doubled down. He said, never, never, never give up. Because that's the temptation of all of us, right? We just want to throw in the towel and give up. But hope is there because love is there. So we don't give up on that.
How do we restore hope to this area? How do we restore hope to our democracy? Because right now we're divided. We're too divided.
We are. I think the hope has to come first through faith.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just throw in the towel, right? If there's no answer to this.
Yeah.
But because of the fact that there's a God, we can trust Him.
Yes.
Amen. Amen.
He is the author, He is the creator, the imago, we are created in His image, the imago Dei. And because of the hope that He gives us to say, we are empowered people to look for ways to love and empower one another, that yes, we can be divided, but at the end of the day, if we focus on people, so I go to Annapolis and there's a lot of division there. We try to pretend we're not like DC, across the Potomac. But at the end of the day, you might see a lot of public, fighting and all this, but at the end of the day, if we treat each other
Mutual
Right.
with the kindness that everyone deserves, privately, I have a lot of friends across the aisle, whatever,
Kelly.
because we care about one
Even
another.
Kelly.
Even Kelly, like,
Right.
look, she's not going to win, so
I
I love that confidence, baby.
Right now.
That's a fighter.
freedom is on the march.
Yeah.
Freedom matters.
That's right.
The people are very kind, but they're done with the two-faced politicians that
Yeah.
promise you one thing and don't deliver. I'm
Yes.
the only candidate in this race. The only one. Look, there's like 16 candidates in this race. I'm the only one that is pledged to respect your body.
Come on.
Thank you.
It's your body, and no government has the right to decide that they can inject you with their experimental anything.
Okay.
It's your choice, your medical privacy. I'm the only one promising to protect your medical privacy. I'm the only one saying that your jobs are protected and not over jabs that you're ordered to get.
Right.
I'm the only one that's saying that this is about you deciding whether or not you want to make your medical decisions with your doctor, whether you wear a mask or not. But instead, the other side wants to say, you got to force mask your kids for 8 hours a day, and by the way, we're going to cancel their sports. You can't go out in the sunshine. Do you remember 2 years ago they locked the playgrounds
Yes,
and
they
the
did.
basketball courts
Yes,
down
they did.
while you could go to Walmart and hang out?
Right.
That's insane. Especially when everyone knows, the science proves that when you have a virus running around and getting in the sunlight,
Right.
it helps your body. It
Right.
protects you.
That's
It helps,
important.
gives you, the doctors all said that, get outside. On the nice days, get in that sunlight.
Right.
said that.
And yet they locked down the basketball courts and they locked down, we were in Annapolis, I never forget it. We were like, well, what can we do? Well, the governor said, not that I was really caring about it, said you could go on walks. Really? Okay, so we went on a walk and okay, so now I had 10 kids, so playgrounds.
You have a team.
My wife and I married 26 years this year, and by God's grace, we have 10 kids together. Age range from 24 to 3. Or excuse me, 5 weeks. We just had.
We just had the little one. That was number 10.
Now let me tell you something. Playgrounds matter. And
That's the new headline.
we're walking down the street,
Run it out.
and they got yellow tape around the playground. I'm like, how come I can stand in the street with my kids, but I can't let them play in the playground?
Okay.
That's insane. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous what's
Basically,
going
we
on.
gotta get back to common sense.
Thank you.
Common
Yes.
sense
Thank you.
government.
And the hope lies in each of us, okay? When the government takes away your power to function, your power to have your own options, your power to establish your own business, to make your decisions, it's going to remove hope. You're going to be dependent on somebody else telling you what to do. Everything about that is wrong. Empowering you to have the most freedom is the path of the future. You know, we've already seen what happens with socialist countries, where the government is empowered with this top-down approach, telling the people what to do, controlling their every decision, and it's failure after failure after failure. When I was in Colombia, we had El Salvadorians that escaped, and they came across, and Venezuelans. And I'll never forget this young Venezuelan young man came up to me and he said, when you go back to America, don't let them become Marxist. He said, Marxism destroyed my country and my mother almost died and I actually died. They brought me back with some electric paddles. I said, well, you're 20, he was 23. I said, what happened to you? He said he got so emaciated in starvation that he had a heart attack at age 21.
Oh, wow.
And they had to bring him back with electric shock. And they had no food. He was out there fishing for catfish every day to try to eat. That's the essence of a top-down Marxist false philosophy that says you have to depend on the government and the collective for your existence. It's false. It's been tried. It's been proven to be false. Instead, the approach that expands your opportunity and liberty is the key. That's the path of the future. And that's why I'm running for governor. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions for?
Yeah, any other questions is great. You mind if I have a seat while I answer?
Yes, please. You can stand up.
And we have a member of the press here, so I hope she doesn't say that he didn't remember Harriet Tubman's name. You're not going to say that, right? I remembered her name. Just to give me a second. You got to give me a second. Yes.
All right, so your name?
Yes, hi, my name is Blanca Tapawasco, and I am an immigrant
Yeah.
and a proud naturalized citizen.
All right.
Thank
I am
you.
from El Salvador.
Wow.
I don't know if anyone else is, not that it's necessary, but is from another country in this room.
Yes.
Yes.
However, I can tell you, I'm 50 years old, and I have never seen it, as she mentioned, the division. The division.
Yep.
Where you can't even, you really can't even say the word immigrant without it, like, you know? And it shouldn't be like that. We are a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of lost.
Thank you.
Right.
When my child does something that would potentially put them at risk or someone else's space, I can't just say, I can't.
Right.
And so my question to you is, as you know, we have a mayor
Right.
who will be in office for 3 years. We have a school board that it's not elected, it's appointed.
Exactly.
We have 5 commissioners that have come in, gone out in 15 years. We have had 4 school CEOs in that time. And we have had Jack Young. Before that was Pugh. She served her time. She's now back home. So this is what we're facing in Baltimore. It's a revolving door. And if I could even think for a minute that one child would do okay with 15 parents in 15 years, there's a problem. And so my question is, how can you, when you become the governor, when, not if, when?
Okay.
And no applause, it needed, because you know what? It's life and death. You know when we get to know about people is when they die.
Yeah.
Chesley Patterson, still no suspect. DoorDash driver, 50 years old,
Right.
killed.
Or-
Malaya Turner, 13-year-old, outside of the rec center,
Yes.
shot dead. This is our everyday in Baltimore City.
Yep.
So our family has a model, MOTTO model, and a model. Crime did not bring us into Baltimore, and it surely will not get us out of it either. And the criminality here is severe, whether it's in Canton or is on Hillen Street, half a block from Mergenthaler, where my son is an honor student and is doing well. Shot and dead, Lieutenant Blue, the spouse of Lieutenant Blue. Okay, this is what's going on, Delegate Cox, and so I think it's important for you to, I mean, you know this already, but it's for you to see that we are bleeding to the point that people don't even know who's leading. Because we're not part of the network. I'm not in the, you know, I mean, I know Donald Trump said the swamp, and that became kind of like, you know, but you know, all of us in this room, if we're honest, we know that there's a little inner circle, you know, if you know
There's the
so-and-so,
swamp. There's the
you will,
swamp.
you know. When you have James Shea, who is now the solicitor for the mayor, Jim Shea ran for governor, 2017. Who did he pick as a running mate? Mayor Brandon Scott. It's all in the family unless you're a taxpayer demanding why. I was part of a nonprofit who wanted to open up a school year-round, closing the summer gap, bilingual. We could even get certified bilingual. That way kids, and there are schools in Maryland that do have,
Right.
they get it's a program where they're going to be bilingual and year-round, closing the gap. School board said no. Said no the second time. Said no the third year. We sued them. We sued the school board. We went all the way to the top, and Maryland State Department decided we are going to go back. We side with you.
Right.
We're going to go back and let the school board decide. We already got two no's. So, you know what I mean? So in April of 2021, a year ago, we get our third no. So this, see, and I can admire you for running. First of all, just that you're running. But there is an element of criminality in the politicians already elected. And parents are people, and parents are taxpayers. And so what would you do to, because you can't curb criminality. See, we can't, you're an attorney, you can't legislate morality, but you surely can legislate common sense. And because that's what's facing here. Now, I'm not new to Baltimore. I grew up in Baltimore County, moved here when back in 1990, and we paid off our home. We're raising 3 men. We're not raising boys, because they're not going to be boys at 18.
Right.
We're raising men.
Right.
And that's the issue here, that we are bleeding to death.
Right.
Hogan should have done something, but he didn't.
So what
That's really what's going on.
Yeah.
And this is every family speak. And
Yes.
failing schools are failing generations.
Question.
No one should have a .13 GPA.
It's a disaster.
Yes, it is.
So I think, as to the education element that you mentioned, I think that we need to have elected school board members.
Yes.
And that's something I'm working to push for. I know Giovanni Patterson's working on that. I don't know if anyone knows Giovanni, but he is,
we're working with it.
Yes.
he is
We're awesome.
pushing for that. And that's crucial because that gives the power back to you, power back to the people, you know, instead of through these corrupt appointments or politicians. And that will then allow for much, I think, much better decision-making Now, the second aspect of your point is the violent crime issue and the lack of a response. And I remember State's Attorney Mosby came into our committee and it shocked us all by saying that there's only 30% of the murders are followed up on and actually prosecuted. And we were shocked. We're like, wait a minute, 70% of the murders are not even prosecuted, or they're just totally inept, in my opinion. No one should appreciate that. I mean, it's your community. Do you really want that kind of behavior? No. And so my approach would be a constitutional approach under Article 2 to use the power of the governor's office to bring together the elected leadership of Baltimore and to say this has got to end now. And if you're not going to follow the laws and the common sense application of protecting the freedom of Baltimore, just like everyone else gets protected in Maryland, if you're going to let people get slaughtered down here where every other community doesn't do that, it's wrong. We're not going to stand for that. And as governor, we'll use the Constitution to make sure it ends. Now, there are several aspects to this. I don't believe it'll come to this because I think using the power of the office can avoid a lot of the concern and hopefully motivate people and properly utilize prosecution in the through the. That's why we need an attorney general to prosecute the corruption and the corrupted officials. But we need to make sure that we follow the Constitution. But the Constitution, Article 2, Section 8 and 9, commands the governor. Doesn't give him an option or her. It requires the governor to make sure the laws are executed. And, if necessary, call out the National Guard or the militia is what it says in the Constitution. Now, I don't think it would get to that if you actually use the power of the governor's office to say, you corrupt politicians are going to stop now. We're going to make sure that the local communities have the power that they need to end the slaughter. And, unfortunately, a lot of the now I don't have as much experience maybe as you because you live here every day, but when I worked here every day, I had a case that I'm not allowed to talk about in specifics, but it opened my eyes to the fact that a lot of Baltimore City's violent problem has to do with cartels and gangs that unfortunately take advantage of young people, misuse them, and then use these young men and young ladies to accomplish their evil deeds. And the slaughter continues and nobody's stopping it. And open borders is part of this, by the way.
That's correct.
And so the power of the governor's office absolutely will be used to end it constitutionally, but for the security and safety of everyone. We're going to make sure that I bring everyone to the table to say, what's your community need? What do you need? And like somebody asked me, well, what about the school issues? With we put $2 billion in here, and there's still no HVAC in the schools. I said, how are you going to deal with that? I said, I'll tell you how I'll deal with it. I built 2 houses with my own hands. I know how to get a contractor on a site. I'm going to stand outside every school as governor and say, get your butt down here and fix the AC. Put a new system in.
And that's what we need.
Right.
We need somebody that's
It's not being properly spent at all.
oversight. We need
After I
oversight.
said that on the, I think Fox or somebody carried my little statement about that. Literally 2 days later, Governor Hogan was down here in front of the school.
Exactly.
Saying the
Yes.
same thing. Like,
Yes.
well, where the heck were you before?
Exactly. Exactly.
I have a question.
Okay,
Yes.
next.
I have a
Oh,
question.
We have a question here.
oh, yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for
And
coming
ma'am, you're next.
to our community.
My privilege.
As you know, there's a culmination of issues. One that she spoke on, inequities our politicians and what they do with the good funding that's supposed to be coming through Baltimore.
Yes.
And trickling down to things like the school that's across the street.
Right.
Now, I can literally reach out my window and touch that school. I've watched students attend that school for the last 12, 13 years. I've watched 70 to 80% of the staff or the students come out of class before school is ended, smoke weed. When I'm in the classroom, the school, most of them are in the hallways. It's literal 2022 Lean on Me. If you haven't seen the movie,
Yeah.
it is not an exaggeration. And so my issue is, again, we know that students don't have access to the education. I know they don't, because I grew up in Howard County and graduated from Wild Lake, which is 20 minutes down the road.
Right.
Two totally different worlds.
Right.
I need to know why a certain amount of funding is being allocated for education,
Right.
but our students have to be educated in a 90-degree classroom.
Right.
I need to know why the governor, the existing governor, comes in our community and puts signs pertaining to new elevators in school when they don't even have books.
Right.
Right, exactly.
These are things, I need to know why me and my family cannot develop this block for the community. We've been here fighting 11, 12 years.
No.
And that's 20 years.
I was here for 3 games myself.
And so, like you said, the issue is you can't lay a blanket or a budget on Baltimore City and expect that it's going to change anything. There needs to be systems,
Right, the same people.
checks and balances in place to hold
Yes.
these people accountable
Right.
to make sure that this money is going to the places it needs to be. We in our community cannot be extorted.
Right.
Me as a small developer and a community developer, let's explain the difference. I live here.
Right.
I did exactly what you told me to do. I started my own business. It took me a long time, okay?
Yep.
Got into construction. I then wanted to pull my community into ownership and buy houses and refurbish them so that they didn't have to live there. This city
Affordable housing.
and our mayor
Right.
and all the mayors have made it extremely difficult.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they did.
And that needs to change.
I guess it's not really a question. I'm saying it's more of a need. There needs to be some accountability and some infrastructure. in place.
Absolutely.
The whole Baltimore City politicians
Absolutely.
responsible.
Yes.
It's not about black or white. It's about the have and the have-nots at this point. Because we know most of our politicians are black in Baltimore.
There you go, black Democrats.
Skinship doesn't mean kinship.
Exactly. Exactly.
We need checks and balances. Like you said, it's not about skin color or it's about the have and the have-nots.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
And everybody deserves the opportunity.
That's exactly.
Thank you very much, I agree. And let me tell you a little example. So we tried to do an audit, a simple audit of this money, okay? About 2 years ago. And the powers of that be, of the Democrat Party, changed it to say, well, we don't want your kind of audit.
What's your kind of?
Yeah, our kind of audit was actually an independent audit.
Independent on it.
We don't care
I'm
who,
going
let's
after
just make them independent. Let's get a report, let's follow the money, see what happened to it. We want to know why this $2 billion disappeared.
Right.
I know somebody got caught on a yacht overseas and they're making 100 grand, but let's find out what's going on.
Exactly.
So they didn't want that. So they changed it and they said, okay, no, the appointees that are appointed by the top Democrats in the DLS, they're the ones that are going to decide the audit. So they did
See?
an audit. It's like the fox guarding the hen house.
Right.
And so they, you don't get full transparency. So I think, and as your governor, that's what I would focus on, full transparency. I would say, look, let's empower you to have a full audit. Let's make sure we start uncovering this and post it on the internet so everybody can read it.
Everybody can see it.
It's not losing housing with the tax over water bills. In the
Yes.
city of
Right.
Baltimore.
Yes.
I mean,
Literally losing their house
And the
over
system
water.
is-
That the system, and the system that's leaking, but they're charging you. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
And they were behind in their water bill?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's, so, it's,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
My name is Tammy Davenport. I live in Baltimore City in Kenmore.
Okay.
My house, I love to say this because I go to Sweden, people will know exactly where I live. They've never been to my neighborhood. My backyard faces the CVS that was looted in 1960.
Oh, wow.
What I would like to first do, please, is make a statement, and then I do have a question. So my statement is, I don't want to short shrift, I don't want to skip over what you said about faith. If I look at my elected officials in Baltimore City, not one of them has a faith-based stance. Not one of them can say, I'm a member of this particular or faith-based organization. Not one of them acknowledges even if there is a God in heaven. If we take a minute, this young man mentioned that they are mostly African, they are all African American, but they are also all part of the Democratic Party. I would like to just suggest to everyone in this room who has an ear to hear that you take a minute and read the platform. If you are a registered Democrat, please understand what you are voting for. You're not voting for a human being. You are voting for a platform.
You are.
And it is a godless platform on purpose. On purpose. Please read it. And then read the Republican platform. Because if you're voting, you're not voting for a human being, you are voting for a platform. I learned that in 2016 because I was supporting Dr. Carson. And we all remember he suspended his campaign and he voted, he supported President Trump. And I lost my mind, personally. I did, personally. And I said in that day, and I was actually at the Grand the night that Dr. Carson made that decision. I was at the Grand. The next day he made the announcement because there was some formalities to be done. But I said that night, I will never vote for a Donald Trump. And Dr. Carson said, you need to read the platform.
Read the platform.
You're too emotionally involved. 18 people start out running, one person ends up. You're not voting for that human being. And if you remember, he didn't support President Trump until President Trump said that he would support the platform.
Right.
Once he said he would support the platform, then it was a go. My question, I live in Baltimore City. I want to see you as what can I do to help promote you? I would like to leave.
Great.
So,
I have a few dollars that I would like to give to you today.
well, no, so.
No,
I
please,
can't-
because I might not have it
No,
tomorrow.
Let me be clear.
Okay, thank you.
Let me be very, let me be very
Okay, I
clear.
got you. I got you. I'm sorry, but I just want to support you.
Let me be very clear because this is a free event.
Yes.
Because I'm in the legislature, I'm forbidden from asking or
Right,
raising
for
money.
donations.
So it is a handicap.
Right.
But what we're doing is we're wearing the tread off our feet instead.
Yes, we
And
do.
so if you're able to volunteer in some way, we have groups sign waving all across the state every weekend.
Absolutely.
We have groups right now every day going door to door. We have a system, we have a professional app that we're using to go door to door knock in teams. That's happening right now. Now, what can you do though? So the most important thing is to encourage people, I think, to become Republicans. Now, I'm not, let me tell you something.
Get out of your.
I am not a Republican first. I'm an American first.
Exactly.
The reason why I'm Republican is what you just said, the platform.
It's the
Read the
platform.
platform.
So there's people that I have to hold my nose around like my
Read the
opponent.
platform.
Exactly.
A little bit of rhinos, there's rhinos in the
yes.
Republican Party, but that's
Right.
not why we're in the party. The party's a big tent,
It is.
and it's designed to have your voices matter. It's the only platform out there that says that you
Absolutely.
have individual rights, and we will never surrender them. The Bill of Rights is ours and it's yours.
The platform.
I have been registered,
The platform.
I have been registered Republican for 25 years. I have lived in my house for 30. I am a homeowner. I intend to be a homeowner, and I intend to support my.
Can I tell you something just happened last week? I put an amendment on the bill on the floor of the House. Because I'm running for governor and because, whatever.
That's your job.
It's my job. They kill all my,
Delegate, right? Even though they killed him.
they kill my bills. Now, I have passed legislation, but this year they killed all my bills. Okay. That's fine, I knew it was coming. So I put the things on the House floor as an amendment. You know what, I had a simple, okay, I've done a bunch of these, but I had a simple amendment that says we are going to respect the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. We're going to teach it, make sure it's taught before you graduate from public school in Maryland. You're going to at least read it and learn about it. Do you know that it was only 2 or 3 Democrats voted with me and the Republicans for that? The rest of them shot that thing down so fast, and actually someone made a speech not embracing the Bill of Rights. I couldn't believe it.
Believe it, honey.
This is
Believe it.
This is what the ACLU, okay, look,
Got some Democratic
I'm an attorney, you know, that loves the Constitution. I work for civil rights. I actually have worked part of my practice in defending civil rights of individuals. I believe firmly in the Bill of Rights. It was part of the Constitutional Convention. They wouldn't even sign, they wouldn't even agree, the United States wouldn't even agree to the new United States without a Bill of Rights, okay?
That's right.
Because we wanted to make sure the government wouldn't get too big and it would crush us.
Thank you.
And the ACLU, who I've never supported as an entity, but they've had a couple, once in a while they get it right. The ACLU used to be the Bill of Rights
They were.
champion, and they don't
They
show
used
up
to
on
be.
that anymore. Where were they for the last 2 years when you had your businesses locked down, you couldn't feed your
Right.
family? Where were they?
Right.
And so with that, we have an Attorney General. Can I ask you to, a future Attorney General here, can you say a few words? And then Bernie Flowers also running for Congress. I want him to say a few words after that. And then another candidate here. Who else is running?
What, we got?
And she's running.
Right here, District 40. District 40, there we go. A couple more questions.
Right here, Sanika Bates.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you?
Good.
My question is around the mental health issue of the students as it relates in the school system. I know a lot of times we talk about education, and education is very, very important, but you can't really do the education if the kids are being traumatized, if they need help, don't know how to ask for help. Some kind of way, we have to figure out a way to get, and I'm not talking, social workers are fine, but I'm talking about actual therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and so forth, to be a part of a team for Baltimore City Public Schools. Education, period. To try to help the kids. You know, unfortunately, the young gentleman, the young man that was just killed, that was 15 years old, I watched him grow up as a kid, and that hurt my heart. That was her only son. And yes, and don't know why, I can't question why, but it happened. So kids are devastated, but they don't know where to go to express their anger, why it happened. This is a good kid. Tell me to go to school, do this, get involved. I did all of the things, but yet I still get the chances of being gunned down in Baltimore City. So those type of, it's a big concern because I have grandkids overall. That need that. We've got to look at the mental health status of this whole city.
Yes, that's a good overall.
It's an overall challenge.
Well, it breaks my heart having children myself to imagine what the children go through, losing their best friends. You know, my son, my oldest son, was in the 82nd Airborne, and he also went through some special forces training, but one of his buddies died. And here's this strong young man, you know, he's 6'3", he's trained to be tough, and yet he was broken there, or, you know, he lost his friend.
But nothing can train you
Yes.
to handle something
It's
like that.
very, very difficult. So I believe that's why I go back to my platform of having the foundation be faith, family, and freedom, because if we empower faith community, if we make sure that we're not putting the screws to the church or to the, you know, the faith leaders, the nonprofit institutions that are actually getting the job done, then that can help. It's not the total answer, but that can help. And
Now, Mr.
and
Leon,
empowering the community.
yeah, he's actually, they call him the
I-
mayor of Harlem Park.
I hear you. I see
So
you ready to
he's been
talk. So
doing this for,
Yes, a church, well, it's only on the corner of Stricker and Emerson.
yeah.
Unity United Methodist Church. Notice to put the last part on the Methodist Church. So by us being in the Methodist conference, when this pandemic came along, churches were shut down and everything. So we got a little mold, little rain came in. So the Methodist conference decided to come down and they closed the church up.
Oh, wow.
Now I was there 7 days a week. Every day, anybody, Miss
Yeah,
Raymond
you
can
was
tell
getting
you.
feed and all that.
Yes, I did everything to
that.
that. I talked to the kids. The kids would come out of the church was a safe. I get a little choked up when I talk about it. The church was a safe haven for the
Yes,
kids
for the
over there.
children.
And right now I'm closed down. I need some help.
No, we need to.
So sorry.
It goes back to,
It's
that's
true.
what we say, we
No.
shut down our churches, we
No,
shut down our
no,
schools,
no, we
we
don't
shut
like
down
that.
our police force, we shut
fight
down
that.
everything that builds our community. And that's what we need, the next governor of Maryland to see, that makes no sense.
No, it's not.
Like she said, somebody gets killed,
Mhm.
you wanna go to your church, but guess what, I can't go to my church. My church shut down, but I can go to Walmart, I can go to the next store,
Right.
I can go to, these other places. So we really do need, like, immediately, what can we do? As, like, I know you're saying that a lot of your bills are being, kicked to the curb, but I think if you can show
Yeah.
now, like, hey, I'm in office, I'm doing this now, I'm not gonna wait till I become, y'all vote for
Right.
me and I become governor. I'm gonna start this process now, and when y'all shoot down this bill, that shows our voters what you're really about, that you're not about the community, you're about yourself, you're about your party. So if that's what we need, we wanna see something now. We're at a point where we need help now, not just,
So if I put an amendment on the House floor
yes.
to expand mental health care workers into the schools and to
That's
expand
what I'm running.
faith-based interaction,
Yes, that's what I'm running.
I
I mean,
would
not
need-
only did
I would need some input on practically how that would work.
okay,
Hey, we got you.
Because the Baltimore City delegation is there. It's there with me on the House floor.
Right.
okay.
And so far I haven't heard, you're the first people to tell me about this.
Oh, my goodness.
See,
I mean,
what did
I was,
say?
like I said, I was there 7 days a week. It was the only church in the Harlem Park area that was open
And I want to
7
do it
days.
humbly, I want to help humbly, because let me tell you something. I represent all of Maryland,
Yes.
but I'm elected from Frederick and Carroll County. So for me to do anything for Baltimore City, I need to go and talk to the
You gotta work
delegation.
with people, yeah.
I
Okay.
need to
Right.
know
I'm gonna connect.
what's the issue that you need. Let me go talk to your delegates, because I agree with you. It's heart-wrenching. The murders that we're seeing every day, it's almost a murder a day.
It is a murder, it is a murder.
That's a
today.
family
Yeah,
impacted
that's-
every single day with the
that's-
most drastic pain in the heart that you can have. But that doesn't include all those that are actually shot up or assaulted and that survived.
Right,
You got all that trauma.
right.
And you know that since 2006, rapes have
Yeah,
almost
it
tripled.
has. Yeah,
Almost tripled.
Yes.
right.
There's a lawlessness that needs to end because we respect one another. But the path forward to do that needs to have community involvement, needs to have your voice. And I'll tell you what, if you were to show up to my committee and tell your story, brother, you could hear a pin drop. They'd listen to you.
Yeah.
Because my committee doesn't hear from that. You know what they hear from? They hear from open society groups
Right.
Exactly.
that say they want money to do this, that, and the other program that has nothing to do with what you're talking about.
Right.
And he's been doing it. This not something he just started, no, he's been doing it for decades. So, definitely.
Yes,
Mr. Leon.
and your idea is fantastic. I have supported mental health access in the schools. That was one of the bills that actually got passed. You know what they did? They changed it to be a study. It seems like a lot of times these
Let's
bills.
just, let's study it first.
Yeah, a lot of times they change these bills to be a study. And, I want to be careful with, any kind of misuse of taxpayer dollars.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, when you have kids that have no parents that are able to help them, and this is what you're talking about. Their friend just got murdered. They have no structure to help them. And we're shutting down the church. This has got to.
That could help.
That could help.
And
We've
the
got
other
to
thing, a
stop.
lot of them the insurance companies, because most of the population that we serve is receive Medicaid. So
Yeah.
Medicaid is part of these managed care organizations.
Right,
And the managed care organizations wants to save money by
right.
not giving referrals so that they can get the service. So it's a combination of health insurance, not what they do, they need to do,
Yeah.
and mental health and so forth and so forth.
Well, before I leave,
Yeah, we wanna
I'd like to
make sure.
introduce the other candidates for office that graciously came today. The Attorney General candidate, Mike Peruka.
Cool.
I apologize, I have to run.
Oh, wow.
I have to go, but I wanted to just make a quick comment. I didn't really want to take the floor, Dan, but I just wanted to comment on when we were talking about the Bill of Rights a couple of moments ago.
Yes.
I don't know if you realize, but Maryland has a Bill of Rights.
Right.
Yes.
they
There's
do.
a Maryland Constitution,
Right.
and there's a Maryland Bill of Rights. It's called the Declaration of
Right.
Rights.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the discussion we were having earlier is very important, because the Bill of Rights and the Constitution is the vehicle by which we express consent to the governed. In other words, we have government by consent of the governed. Our consent is, the vehicle for that consent is the Constitution. So to the extent that the government follows the Constitution, then it has our consent.
Right.
We say it has our consent, but to the extent that they violate the Constitution, they don't have our consent.
Right.
Now, the reason that's important is because for the last 2 years, the lockdowns, the mandates, the closing of the churches, the violations of our freedom to assemble, the violations of our personal bodily autonomy have all been illegal. They've
Right.
all been unlawful. And it doesn't matter what you thought about the science, whether you thought the science was
Right.
good or the science was bad. I thought the science was absurd
Ridiculous.
and self-contradictory and ridiculous, etc. But even if you thought the science was perfect, it doesn't matter because it was still
was
unlawful.
unconstitutional.
It doesn't matter about the science. So we have to make sure, first of all, that stops. And the reason I'm running for Attorney General is because I want it to never happen again.
Right.
And in order for it to never happen again, those who have done it need to be brought to justice.
Absolutely.
And that includes everybody from county officials, health officials, and government and state officials. We have had lawlessness. We're talking about the lawlessness that's happened in our culture, the murders. Lawlessness starts at the top.
It
Lawlessness
does.
breeds
Thank you.
lawlessness.
Thank you.
Lawlessness breeds lawlessness. And we've had lawlessness at the top of our government. And unless those things are redressed, ladies and gentlemen, unless those things are redressed and those people brought to justice, we don't have a constitution, we don't have a rule of law, and nothing else is going to work.
Right.
We don't have a deal, we don't have a consent of the governed, and we're just slaves. We're all slaves. And if they can tell you what you have to put in your body, they have to go out in your body.
That's what
You are a slave.
That's what I do tonight.
So all of these things have been unlawful. That's the thing you have to remember. The TV and all they're going to try to convince you that, oh, there was an emergency. It doesn't matter. Article 44 of the Maryland Declaration of Rights says this. I'm going to try to quote it to you. It says the provisions of the Constitution of the United States and of this state, being Maryland, apply as well in times of war as in times of peace, and no deviation therefrom or violation thereof based on a plea of necessity, like a pandemic, or any other plea. The law says, the Constitution says, you can't violate people's rights based on any other plea or a plea of necessity, or any other plea. It doesn't make it valid. There's no COVID-19 exception to the Bill of Rights. There's no COVID-19 exception to the Maryland Declaration of Rights.
All right.
There's the lawlessness at the very top of government has to be redressed. Liberty forever, mandates never. Say that.
Liberty forever, mandates
never. One more time.
You want yard signs that we can take? Mr. Peru?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
we need yard signs.
And then I'll also,
Front yard and back.
thank you, Mike, for
apologize
coming this way. Thank you, sir.
You
Another
always
gentleman
welcome
that,
back, Mike.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
All right.
Mark Keaton.
Marquita, yes.
we gotta take our streets back, and that begins by taking our Congress back. And Bernie Flowers is an American patriot. He's running. He's a friend. We need him in Congress. Bernie, would you say a few words?
Man, I'm gonna come up where you guys are, so please, thank you for giving me a little time. For those that don't know me, I'm Bernie Flowers. I believe in common sense, not nonsense. And what I'm seeing in our nation right now, especially since Mr. Biden has been elected in his administration, we got a whole lot of nonsense. Do you realize, I spent some time in Afghanistan. I got 21 years in the United States Air Force. I retired Lieutenant Colonel. You guys might have heard that before. Thank you, ma'am. I spent another 13 and a half years as a federal civilian working at the highest levels of government. So I know what I'm talking about. In Afghanistan, for example, our government built a gas station. They spent $1 billion on that gas station, okay? Why am I driving around Baltimore and seeing houses boarded up when we're spending $1 billion on a gas station in somebody else's country?
Right.
Why are we sending $500 million over to Ukraine? They're wonderful people, but they're not Americans. The problems that you guys are talking about mental health, about COVID, a lot of that could be solved by the money that we're sending overseas.
Right.
We are a rich country, and it should be that a lot of that money should be spent here with American
Right at
citizens.
home.
Ma'am, I believe in legal immigration. We are all immigrants. Everybody here, your ancestors came from somebody else, somewhere else, even whether you were on a slave ship or whether you came into Ellis Island, we are all immigrants. And everybody should have to go through the same process. Why am I running? The biggest thing that I saw working at my last job in the Department of Homeland Security, do you realize 3,000 people come across that border every night, and our government has neutered the Border Patrol? They have they're being overwhelmed down there. And I saw this and I'm like, what can I do to stop this? What can I do to help? So I decided to quit my job, my comfortable federal job, and run for Congress.
That's what he did. That's a big sacrifice.
I'm running in District 2, but I don't know if you guys are familiar. There's a jurisdictional fight, a gerrymandering fight. This state is the most gerrymandered state in the union. And that's why Baltimore can't get any success, because the money's being split up somewhere else and through corruption.
Yes.
Now, hopefully the governor will sign off on one of these maps soon, and I will know whether I'm running in Gainesville or in Dundalk.
Or if I live here, or if I'm in this district.
But
Like,
until
what
we
district
figure
do I
that
live in?
out, we don't know.
Right.
And they keep us off balance. And your people, the people that live right here in Baltimore, are suffering more than anyone else.
Right.
So with that said, I don't have a prepared speech. I got a lot to say. I'll talk all day if Dan will allow me to.
Go for
Then
it.
we can have you come back.
Well, I'll come back. But you guys don't want to hear all this. I've got some flyers. The issue of the day is you guys are not alone. And by the way, how long has it been since you guys have had a Republican mayor?
60, almost 65 years.
If you're voting for the same people and the same party, back to Pete D'Alessandro, Nancy Pelosi's father, okay? There's no choice. There's no competition. So they don't have to respect you.
They don't.
That's right.
They're complacent
Black
now.
people in Baltimore, please, I'm not telling you to vote Republican straight ticket. I'm telling you to look at the issues and vote for your issues, the things that count for you. Don't just Democrat straight down, because you're going to get more of the same if you keep doing the same thing. So with that said, I'm Bernie Flowers. I'm running for Congress. Spread the word. I'm outside your district, but let folks know. Yes, sir.
Wait, Mr. Flowers, I have just one question.
Yes, ma'am.
With the, and it is a illegal entry. If
Yes.
I right now, I don't know where Delegate Cox lives, but if I right now busted his house, went in and stole, that's called trespassing. That's what I understand.
Yes.
So, don't you believe that also the pandering of a certain party
Yeah.
brings people in, because that's going to bring more Democratic votes?
That's the plan. That's what I
Thank
see.
you.
The issue of the day is when people come here and don't go through our legal immigration system, it weakens your vote. Whose jobs are they going to take? They're not going to take some high-powered $500,000 lawyer job. No, they're going to take those construction jobs that belong to the local people. We have to understand that illegal immigration affects everyone in the country.
Now,
So thank you for your
Can I
question.
ask you this?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I'm, you know, I don't want to go against you. You may know better than I do, but from my perspective, this is how I look at it, and you guys have to take this into consideration. the law hasn't always been the same law for everybody.
No, it certainly hasn't.
And when it comes to immigration, sometimes you're fleeing from somewhere.
Have no problem with that.
And if you're fleeing from somewhere, then it's a process that we have to go through. But just like they're allowing the Ukraine to come over
I help with that.
and Afghanistan, can we have those same type? Because I have a lot of immigrant friends.
Yes.
That's undocumented.
Wonderful
And
people. I'm sure.
very, and they're hardworking.
Mhm.
And the problem is they'll tell me, because I work with CASA, and they'll say, we're trying this, we're doing this, and it's been a 10-year process, and where do we go? Because they'll come over, some will come over with a work visa. And then the work visa or they'll come over with a student visa.
Right.
And the student visa, but that part of that process is still ongoing. Their paperwork is still being delayed, or because of this is going on. Now we have COVID, so it's more delays.
Right.
So what do we do with those? Shouldn't we offer them an extension versus, okay, get out? You've been here for 10 years going through the process, now leave. So that's why I said we gotta bring the common sense back into this.
Common sense versus nonsense.
Exactly.
If somebody's come here, started a family, got a job, paying taxes, okay, we should build a path to make them an American citizen. And we should build a situation where people are blending. That's what this country is all about. I'm not trying to kick anybody out, but if you come to this country, you should love this country. Make this country your country. So I have no problem with folks that coming over here that want to participate in the system. But there are people who come over here for for reasons that are not honest and just. And some people are bringing crime. But the people that want to be American citizens, I'm all for that. Let them do their thing. Let them help you in your construction business. Okay? But the folks that come over here and want to bring crime, they need to go. And more importantly, Mr. Biden, he has cut, again, like I said, cut the funding for the Border Patrol and Customs. He was actually going to send a bunch of them over to the Ukraine to help them. Or actually, he was going to send them to Poland, which is where the border is over there. But what about our border? I can tell you some things that make your hair curl. But I was there and I saw it up close. Ma'am?
I used to work for Homeland Security.
Well, then you understand.
Oh, I know.
Yes, you do. And again, we were spending buttloads of money on people that weren't, helping this country. So with that said, I'm running for Congress. I hope to get your support. And let's help some Republicans. I want to see this man as a governor. He inspired me to run. He shamed me in the running. Beth, you guys shamed me in the running, and now we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. Appreciate it. Thank you all so much. I think I need to head out here shortly, but yes, is there another question before I leave?
Oh, we got candidates in the
Oh, another candidate. Oh, my goodness. Oh, what am I saying? Come here. Come here.
That's okay, I'm the only woman. In the district.
No, you're not.
In the district.
This lady is running for House of Delegates, and she could win.
Yes,
she can.
Please tell us.
Yes.
All right. You know what, thank you so much. I'm Zalika Bazemore, and as most of you know, this is my district, and I ran for mayor. Why? I wanted to actually make a difference, because 6 years ago, I've been here a decade, but 6 years ago, I saw some things so profound just going throughout Baltimore City. The first thing I saw was the dynamic of talent here in our city. The young artists, the young musicians, the young vocalists, and I'm a promoter. 32 years I promoted professional champion boxers. The first female to break into that all-men's circle to become a sports manager. So we had people that we elevated, like Layla Ali, like Christy Martin, the coal miner's daughter, and we've been all over the world. They asked me to come in 2013 to bring televised boxing to Baltimore City because they were about to open Horseshoe Casino. And when I came in and saw people off of $295 actually living in tents, I said, wait a minute, hold up. You want me to bring millions here? And this first thing I see are your citizens living in tents? Wait a minute, something's not right about that picture. So we wanted to promote the first ever in a summit to end homelessness starting right here in Baltimore City. we were able to get $30 million from Ben Carson because Pew took my outline, and instead of giving us the Baltimore Convention Center, she snuck him in. He looked at my outline, and I have ears in City Hall, and said, wow, do you think you can get this done? So in 2018, they had $51 million to actually help end homelessness in Baltimore City. Where did that money go? And this is what is the problem with leadership here in Baltimore City. That's what when God compelled me to run. Because I said, wow, the people are so talented, but I'm looking at the history, and you have so much corruption. And what makes it so bad is black people being corrupt against black people.
Yeah.
Come on. You know what? I looked for BLM. I looked for BLM. I looked for BLM to come to Baltimore City just 4 weeks ago when 7 people, young people, black people, shot right over in 41st District, right across from a school where you have 8th graders now over there traumatized. So Pat, thank you, my friend and neighbor, for asking that important question. What do I want to do in Annapolis? I'm going to be your voice, your fighter, and it's going to be all about you. Not going to be about sending money here to Baltimore City and there's no accountability. Because we're going to make sure, me being in the financial industry for 32 years, the top of my game, a regional vice president in financial services, I know how to follow the money. We're going to make sure, I know, working with this man here, and as most of you know, I don't co-sign for most people. I don't do no co-sign. So that means I don't really endorse candidates. But this man here, out of the 16 candidates that I have met, that I have got to feel their spirit, that I've actually been watching what they do, this man can bring not only hope, but he will actually do the work necessary to actually make Baltimore City the great city that it used to be, that it should be, because of all of you. You guys are talented. You shouldn't have to leave. I see young professionals leave this city each and every day because they don't feel they have the opportunity to reach their fullest potential. We need you, Dad. And guess what? Y'all need me there because I'm going to be one on that House floor. And if I have to shame the Democrats into making sure that the bills that we pass in Annapolis actually benefits all of you, and they know me here. Because they know I'm not going to be in Annapolis. I ain't moving to Annapolis. I'm staying right here in 40 District. Right. So guess what? I'm going to get to see where every dime of that money is going. And if the first time that I see there's been some misdirection of funds, that we, on the Senate side, Chris, because we got somebody running for Senate too. On the Senate side, see, together, we're going to make sure of it. Let me tell y'all, and then I'm going to sit, then y'all can ask questions, then I'm going to sit down. This election season is such a profound and important season, and I'm going to tell you why. Because behind the scenes, and some of you are going to have a hard time hearing this. I went to an event yesterday, okay, the GBEF. So for you businessmen people, y'all know what GBEF stands for. Greater Baltimore Economic Forum, okay? And I spoke to the former mayor of Baltimore City.
Kirk Smoke.
Yeah, Kirk Smoke, okay? And let me tell you something. When I got to talking about young entrepreneurs and why we have an obligation to make sure that we bring small business back in a major way, where, let me tell you another thing, Our faith base is a business as well, because faith base has a business of gathering souls. Listen up, folks. We have over 3,000 churches in Baltimore City. Okay? That church, Leroy, we're gonna make sure they don't close that church. Because you know, y'all that know me, know we're gonna feature them on Fox 45 this week. Next week. We're gonna feature them on WJZ. We're gonna feature them, okay? Because we're gonna shame them into doing the right thing. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because this is your community, Leroy. Leon. This is your community, Pat. Leon. This is y'all's community. So without the people's voice and the people's vote on what shuts down and what stays open, because it's a benefactor, you guys are the benefactor, y'all benefit from these programs, they get the money, but yet, soon as a tragic or something like COVID, a pandemic hits you, now all of a sudden, you're right, they walked and stomped on our constitutional rights here in Maryland. They didn't do it in Florida. They didn't do it in a lot of the mid-country states, but they did it to us in a major way in Baltimore and in Maryland. Okay, and we have to get back to some normal. And the only way we're going to do that, folks, is we've got to do it with the power of our vote. Hear me. This is such a crucial moment in Baltimore's history. If we vote the same Democrats in office, let me tell you what they said behind the scenes yesterday. Oh, I'm getting ready to bust them out. And let me tell you what the Senate delegation said behind the scenes yesterday, which I bust them out to their faces. Oh, guess what? We can't let, finally, we got an opportunity to get the power back, because we need the Democrat governor. We need to take the governorship back, because then we'll get everything that we're calling for in terms of our platform. Did I hear anything about we want to make sure that we better educate, that we give parents the opportunity to have school choice for the dollars? Did I hear anything about we got to make sure that we're bringing small business back in a major way, because they're the ones that's going to actually create the job opportunities? I didn't hear any of that. Their main primary focus was on, we got to make sure that we get the governor's seat back, because then, and only then, are we going to be able to pass our agenda. We can get that done now. I'm just listening. And Mecca, who's running in the 46th district on the Republican card, check this out. She was coming right, just coming, being a parent, and talking about why it's so needed, school choice. Why it's so needed for transportation, that we actually help to elevate entrepreneurs, where we can start transportation businesses. You know what I'm saying? During COVID, they were vital. They were essential. And guess what? It gave those young entrepreneurs an opportunity. A lot of them made almost $100,000 over the past year during COVID. So why aren't we business friendly? Look, I started Z-Bay Development Group right here in Baltimore, and during the pandemic, we actually educated young entrepreneurs, helped them set their businesses up legitimately, knowing when to make it a consultant or an independent contractor, or know when to actually produce it as an LLC entity. Then we helped 300 people get the PPP money. Businesses were suffering. Businesses and restaurants are still suffering right now today. Why? Because we had Democrat leadership closing down this state far too long, for no reason, mind you. Brandon Scott closed
I don't want to interrupt you. Our governor is Republican. So it's not.
Doesn't matter.
That's what I said.
I'm speaking truth to power. Does not matter. I'm speaking. Does not matter. I am speaking truth to power.
Some of us
At a certain time, Governor Hogan actually did the right thing. But then I saw when he got arrogant.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to speak truth to power.
Yeah.
I saw when he got so arrogant, when he earned the title chair of the Governors Association and took charge of all our country's governors, and then, the light bulb went out, he decided he wanted to run for president. All bets was out the window when it came to the people of Maryland. All bets was, I want to be president. So I'm going to dog President Donald Trump. I'm going to spurt out all the rhetoric that I can, because the Democrats have been doing that for 5 years now. But those of us that were smart enough and that just had common sense enough to not listen to the rhetoric, but actually to read the policies that Donald Trump brought forth for us, the American people, understood that the policies were actually helping us. The policies were actually great. You feel me?
Can I just put it in this sense? On the day that Mr. Biden came into office, I personally was paying $1.99 for gas.
Uh-oh.
Put it in those sense.
There you go. Right now, the policies are going to kill us. That's why this election season is so vital. It's vital, folks, because we cannot, if you talk about spending the $7 billion that's in surplus for the state of Maryland, if you talk about the $641 million that has come into this city, and what is Mayor Brandon Scott going to do with that money? If you got all Democrats controlling that money, y'all can forget about it. You've got to vote some people that care about you, that really want to see you succeed, that are willing to make sure that we fight for you, because it's not about me. It's not about Mr. Cox, Delegate Cox. It's not about a Christopher Anderson or a Mecca Mohammed. Understand, we are servants. The Democrats have got everybody so twisted over a decade now where you forget who politicians are really supposed to be. They are servants. Merely supposed to be serving you. They're not supposed to be there for self-gain. They're not supposed to be there cutting deals with people up the street and emerge behind the scenes saying, okay, take your name off of the LLC papers and we're going to go ahead and we'll invest. We'll throw some money your way.
And
you feel me?
And that's why
see, I want to tell the truth about what's going on.
I believe in bringing, like you said, transparency
there you go.
to the party.
There you go.
We can't just vote along party lines. We have to vote.
And you know what? I couldn't help.
In order to vote
help.
for Delegate Cox for governor, you have to change your party.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. So look, I need everyone in this room to pass the word on. We're going to be doing pop-ups in every district of this city. Why? Because even the way the voting is, if you're not Republican or if you're an independent, you can't even vote in the primaries. So that's why you change your party line. Look at who's running. Stop just looking at the party. Look at who's running. And then make a decision.
Look at the issues.
And look at the issues and look at the platform.
And vote your values.
And then vote who would better serve you. It doesn't take but 2 minutes to go online and change your party. You can always go back. I did it when Obama ran. Really?
We actually going to hold a
so we're going to be holding. We're going to be doing.
Yeah.
We're going to get together.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing much of that. Okay. Thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
They came and they motherfucking in last
Like I said, you always welcome.